Are you curious on how to read a comparative market analysis, often called a CMA? Well, you're in luck. I'm going to explain the process that realtors like me go through to come up with a home's fair market value in today's market, since it's ever changing. I'm going to use my own home to go ahead and use as the example to describe and explain the different thought processes that go into coming up with that number and value for you. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So on here, you can see that I have our MLS system pulled up. And if you're unfamiliar with the fact that Utah is a non-disclosure state, that essentially means that the actual sales price is not public information. It is actually only known by realtors and appraisers and other parties that have access to the MLS. So the only thing that is public information is actually if there's a lien on the property, who liened it, how much the lien was for. And as you can imagine, with people putting down a lot of money towards equity into their next home, oftentimes that lien is not accurate to what the actual value was. So what we're doing is we're actually coming up with a box. And in that box, essentially, we're trying to come up with other homes that are very similar to the property that is our subject property. So with that said, what it is we're trying to come up with homes that are within a certain time frame of year built. Sometimes it's 5 years plus or minus, sometimes it's 10 years plus or minus. If it's a much older home, like a historic home, we can go even more wider on the parameters there. And then we're trying to come up with a similar use, similar style, similar neighborhood, similar quality structure, and then most recent, the better too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, but we're just trying to come up with other homes as similar as possible to compare the property to. So you can see right here that we have 4 properties that are comparable to my own home. So they're all based out of Utah. I have the parameter within 1 mile radius of my home. You can go up to 2 miles if you need to, but closer proximity, the better, especially if it's in a certain HOA or subdivision. Those obviously have little nuances and factors that go into whether or not people want it more. And year built, so I actually did 7 years plus or minus, just because my home is about 10 years old. So I didn't want it to include new construction, but when we built our home, there wasn't a lot of new construction happening. And so the comparables are very minimal. And so I just opened that up 2 years more than I typically would. And then I did about 25% plus or minus on the square footage. I'm looking at every single home that's back up under contract or has sold within the last 180 days. As the market is shifting and moving, you definitely want to tighten that time frame. So like 90 days would be typically what we would use if I were to be placing the home on the market today. I would want to look back the last 3 months and say, okay, what currently and most recently is going on with a market, not going back 6 months. And so we did go back 6 months, so I can, have enough comparables to show you this process. We typically like to have at least 3, and so 4 is a healthy number. It is a Rambler ranch, and you definitely want to use the same style. Ramblers actually go for more money than, like, say, a 2-story or a split level or a multi-level. If it is a 2-story and it has a master on the main, that's obviously different than most other 2-stories. So you definitely want to look at the functionality and the floor plan and what we know to be true and what buyers actually end up loving and desiring in their home. And so we also put in at least 3-car garage. So those are all the parameters I'm putting in for now. So I'm going to go ahead and view these results. You can see every single one of them has actually sold, which is great. And then you can see, just for example, the address, what the list price was, what the sold price was, and the different features, but we're going to get into that a little bit more. So I'm going to check this box to open up all 4 of these. I'm going to go to hit my CMA report. And now I'm going to plug in my home's features. And so if you don't know what it is, or there's not a previous MLS, obviously it's good to pull that information up. And so you can do that actually, if you want. You can do it on the county tax records. You can do it based on an appraisal. Typically, those are actually more accurate than a previous MLS because people make mistakes and realtors are human too. So even when I'm pulling up information and auto-populating it based on an old MLS, I will verify what I can verify based against the information that I have, say, with the county records. And so with that being said, we built it. I know this information. So we have 6 bedrooms. We have 3 full bathrooms. We have just over 2,000 square feet on the main. We have 3136 in the basement. It's about 80% finished. And some people are probably going to say, how do you have more square footage in your basement than you do upstairs when it's a Rambler? We actually did a suspended garage. And so our 2-car garage is a dance room / workout room. It's more of a workout room than dance room now that our kids are older. And then we have in our 3rd car garage, which is really a 4-car because it's tandem, it's double deep. That part's unfinished. So about 20% of that is unfinished. And then we built it in 2013. We have a 4-car garage and we sit on 0.32. So acres. Okay. So you can see on here kind of the value system that it changes. It says for every bedroom, those are worth 15,000. For every full bathroom, that's worth about 10,000. A 3/4 bath, about 7,500. If you get into luxury, you're going to want to change these pricing points. If you are maybe in a townhome or something that obviously doesn't have a high dollar value, you can reduce that accordingly. But these are kind of my standard go-tos right now based on the market value that I see. Half baths are worth about 5,000. And then the square footage is about $50 a square foot. And again, that's just the square footage. That's not counting if it's an additional value because it's a bedroom or additional value because it's a bathroom. Additional value in the basement if it's finished. And so with that being said, we don't change a lot when it comes to the year built. I will actually put on here about 1,500 just based on the year built. And then we do about 10,000 per car garage. And so with that, you can see that our home's value is 1.15. I'm just going to round that up. And that's not taking into account anything else. So this is just a basic comparative market analysis. Now, a lot of things that people don't take into consideration is the fact that it may have a view. I live in North Ogden on the hill, and so we have our entire backyard has a view over Ogden. It may not take into account a wet bar in the basement. It may not take into account the condition or updates or features like a pool. It could have a second kitchen. It could have a completely ADU. So part of your home that you can rent out for additional income. There's many different factors that this standard CMA doesn't actually factor in. And so it's really good to know that information. And so typically what I do is I go through each of the comparables and say, okay, what is similar? What is not similar? We're trying to essentially say, if these other homes that sold had our home's features, what would they sell for? So let me share this with you again. And you can see on here that this home has 1 less bedroom than ours. And so it's adjusting 15,000 in the positive because it's saying if it did have 6 bedrooms, it would be worth 15,000 more dollars than what it actually sold for. This one had 2 half baths. And so technically it's taking 10,000 off for those additional half baths. And so it's saying because this home had something better than my home, it's actually my home's worth less than that one. So it's taking it off. And so sometimes people get really confused because they're like, well, what do you mean? Shouldn't it be a negative because it has something less or a positive because it has something more? So the biggest thing to take, I guess, serious about this or take into account is it's actually saying if this home had your home's features, after all the adjustments, what would it be worth? So this down here is just an average based off of the 4 homes that have sold. And again, like I said, subdivisions may play a factor. Some of these homes are in quote unquote the Cove, and the Cove is a more desirable area than where my home's located. I'm only one street outside of the Cove, but with that being said, I'm technically not in the Cove. And so I would say, for example, I would do an adjustment for about $100,000, maybe 150, just because of the fact that we're not in quote unquote the Cove. And again, you could say, well, why? If you're only one street out, what does it have better than yours? It's that it goes higher up the hill. It has even bigger, or I guess better views, bigger homes than what I'm surrounded with. It has pocket subdivisions, so off-street roads that are circular that only people that are going to those homes or guests thereof obviously really use. And so it kind of makes it nice so the streets aren't really busy. So that in a nutshell is how you read a comparative market analysis. If you have any questions at all or want us to run a CMA for you, we would love to. It's something that I personally love to. I'm an analytical person and I love to look at what the market's doing and advise accordingly. So even if you're just curious, even if it's something that is in a year from now, 2 years from now, we can run a CMA right now and we can update that every quarter or every 6 months or even just once a year. So you can keep an eye on what's happening close to home with your home's value. So reach out to our team. My personal phone number is 435-228-7379, or you can find me on myutahagents.com. Thank you.